Hey everyone, it's Tammy. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in. Today I wanted to talk, well actually there's a few things I wanted to talk about. If you're just new to my channel, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. If you want to learn more about me, I'm just going to say, invite you to visit my website, synergessence.com. That link is in the description box. Just check it out. You'll actually get my background, but just know that it is over 30 years of experience with plant medicine, specifically pharmacology, which does stem from the study of plants, as well as the plant constituents, or the constituents more specifically of essential oils. That's really where my heavy focus is. And recently I've posted a few things regarding a diagnosis that I just was handed, breast cancer. I don't know anything more than that right now. The biopsy came back positive for cancer. It's called invasive ductal carcinoma, but we need to do a few more tests to see the extent, and I'm just waiting for that next test. So if I seemed a bit emotional when I first made those recordings, it was a bit of a shock. As I said then, and I'll say it again now, this wasn't supposed to happen to me. I've lived a lifestyle of basically a plant-based lifestyle since I was a child, and have focused heavily on oils. Like I said, I've been working with the oils using oils for well over 30 years, not to the level that I am now. And truthfully, after the last week or so of living with this diagnosis and just having it in my mind, right, in the back of my mind, and not dwelling on the fact that this isn't supposed to happen to me, it's kind of like looking at it, what did this happen for? And so I'll share a little bit about that with you right now, and then I'll dive into the rest of the reason why I'm even talking with you today. But really, instead of going, this shouldn't have happened, and woe is me, and blah, 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 because I don't even have a family history of breast cancer. Now, there is cancer in my family, and that was the one thing I never wanted to get. Fortunately, well, I'm not going to say anything further. We really don't know the degree at which this is at this point. However, what did this happen for is the question that I'm asking, just putting it out there. And honestly, I can tell you that for as much as I have used oils with myself, I've not used them at the level that I promote here. And that's part of the reason why I did an apology not too long ago, because I haven't been really living my work. I've been using them, but I haven't been intentionally selecting them, although I am encouraging others to do so. So this has really been a big shift for me. Now, when it comes to breast cancer, and we're talking about tumors, I have not just breast cancer, but I have supported other people countless times, more times than I can even think of, where there was a tumor involved, from a 2-month-old infant to a 77-year-old woman, and ages in between. I'm talking brain tumors, I'm talking, the neuroblastoma, which is a tumor that develops on the adrenals, and breast cancer and so forth. So I've dealt with a lot of tumors, and we have been able to shrink these tumors very well, to the point where in some cases there was surgery scheduled and then surgery got put off because the tumor was evidently shrinking, and there wasn't any reason, based off of what the surgeon was saying, that they needed to go in any longer and try and remove it, because whatever the individual was doing was working. So I'm very well aware of what we can do and what the body is actually capable of. What I have also recognized is the younger the patient, the more responsive the body is. Now, historically, I've come out and said that this has a lot to do with how long the body has been on the planet, in constant degeneration. And I don't necessarily know that that's 100% the case, because a child, while they have, born with or having, significant tumors at birth, it's more along the levels of stress, okay? Not that they're stressed out, it's environmental stress. And if they're in utero and the mother is stressed, we're talking about, it's a deadly combination, it's a deadly concoction of emotional distress and environmental stress. And that's really what was going on with me. So I've implemented the use of oils, because right now I'm not taking any medications. Because as I said, I've basically lived a holistic lifestyle. Now that's not to say that I'm not going to do what the surgeon suggests that I do. If medications become involved, then I will have to reconsider what oils I'm using based on the mechanism of action of the medication. But for the time being, I'm using oils like bergamot and bitter orange specifically. Celery seed is another one, but oils that are high in the limonene content. But that's not it. So don't hear that as that's my suggestion for everyone, because I don't know your lifestyle. But limonene is a known, it has a lot of benefit when it comes to shrinking tumors. So if you use oils that are high in limonene, that's great. The reason for the bergamot is because it actually helps with the Krebs cycle, which is the use of carbohydrates and sugars, energy per se, for the cells. And so bergamot actually helps in that process. And when the body is distressed, we are not breaking down carbohydrates and proteins properly, which means the enzymatic reactions that are required for chemicals that are needed to thrive are not being there. There's been changes. I don't know how to express this effectively, but what happens when the body is stressed is there's a chemical change. There's an alteration in what needs to happen. It's so the diminishment or the reduction of our ability to break down carbohydrates and proteins is not because the body is dysfunctional. It's because the body's reacting to something that's going on. Again, emotional and environmental. And you can tie mental in that as well, because our thoughts trigger emotions. So it's the mental emotional body combined with the environmental body, if you will. And so therefore the body is in high gear. Shifts are occurring along the epigenome. There's a change in the chemistry for the sake of survival. Now this survival mechanism is designed to be deactivated. It's supposed to be turned off when the threat is no longer imminent. Unfortunately, with thoughts, emotions, and environment, that threat is always there. So chronic misuse or minimal breakdown of carbohydrates and sugars and proteins and fats ultimately leads to additional changes in the system, because the immune system is now thinking that the body's being invaded. So now this is another level of distress that's happening. So focusing on the digestive system is absolutely important. And what I'm telling you with regards to my cancer is I was very focused. I did help with my digestion a bit, but I did not support the methylation pathway like I could have, in this case with oils that contain geraniol, and that's with an OL, because, well, geraniol actually supports the methylation or the folate cycle more specifically. And I was randomly choosing, and I don't want to say randomly, I was choosing oils that I felt like I needed. And I'm not going to lie here, I've been trying to be transparent about all of this. As I said, the reason why I feel like we saw a lot of changes is because there's a mindset. It's not necessarily age related. The older we get, our mindset becomes a little bit more rigid. So when you have a youngster who is dealing with tumors and you're trying to shrink it, they're not thinking bad things. They're just kind of going about their day with mom and dad taking care of them. And they know that all is going to be okay. They're really not wrapped up in the health issues, although stress is what brought it on. So therefore, you do see a rather rapid reversal of what the body produced in the sense of a tumor. You can begin to see it shrink because with the combination of the oils, not just the anti-tumor effect, but also supporting digestion, supporting the reduction of the production of oxidative stress. Supporting the use of the Krebs cycle and the methylation pathway, and all of these factors get built into it. And when you're supporting that with the oils, and then the mindset is just like, hey, life is good, I'm okay, mom and dad are taking care of me, children are going to respond. Now, if you're talking about a 60-year-old who's been caught up in the strife of life, and there's a mindset of medicine and healthcare and disbelief in the body, That's a real hard cycle to break free from and just go, okay, I'm just going to throw all of that away, and I'm just going to just accept the fact that my body can do what you're telling me it can do. That's a really difficult thing to shift. And so that's what I'm getting at with me, is what did all of this happen for? And I've come up with some insights. I recognize a relationship that wasn't stellar with my mother, and how my mind interpreted this and what I did with it. And then of course walking around thinking like, well, this, that's not going to ever happen to me. I'm understanding what this happened for, even with the sense of talking about the mindset, because my mindset wasn't on target. It wasn't, even though I have had digestive upset from time to time, and I've been extraordinarily stressed, financially, more specifically about, again, I'm trying to be, I don't know how this is going to come across to anybody, so you're just going to have to bear with me here. What I propose here, or my approach to health and wellness, is different in the sense that it's just it's a broader, well, I don't know if that's the right word. It's a different modality, is how I want to say it. It's just a different modality. It's not different in the sense that we're not familiar with oils. It's a different way of using the oils. That's what it is. Doesn't make it better, doesn't make it worse. It just makes it different. And because it's a different modality, and I've actually had people telling me nobody's going to be interested, nobody's interested in health. I mean, I've had all of this information from other people coming in. What I recognize now is that was simply my fear on loudspeaker. And what I'm hearing people, I was obviously calling this in. I was attracting my fears. And because I've had other people telling me this, and this is one thing that I have had faced most of my life, which is listening to my voice and following what feels right for me, and owning that over accepting somebody else's opinions. This is where I have to stand and go, okay, now this is what is meaningful to me, and really owning it, and not being bitchy or disrespectful towards anybody else, but just going, okay, thanks for your opinion, but this is still meaningful to me. In the meantime, because I was getting all of that external information dumped onto me, I started to believe people, because I'm thinking, wow, look at all these people. They're telling me that nobody's going to believe in me. Occasionally I would see somebody would pop up into my life and go, hey, this is great, well, keep doing it. And so I would find that basically that call of inspiration to keep going, and that's really why I've kept going with it. Nevertheless, I have stepped on my own toes countless times, which ultimately impacted me financially. And I got scared. I was stressed, and I'm trying to push through something, push through this fear, navigate this fear, and finding myself almost wanting to make something happen to prove that people were wrong, and that prove that it was just a really screwed up way about doing any of that. Basically, it was just stressing myself out because I wasn't okay with myself. I wasn't here. I wasn't centered. I was out there worried about what everybody else was thinking, how they were going to react. And having said all of that, I was stressing myself. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, because I was financially consistent setback after setback after setback, I did not necessarily have all the oils that I would have benefited from. And I honestly, besides that, there's some oils that I would pick that have that high content of geraniol in it that, don't like the odor. It's too potent for me. But that's where I have to step away from all of this and go, it's not about the aroma. And that's a big thing about the oils. It's, right now they're being touted as bath and body. We're all looking for that great fragrance. It's not that the potency, or the pungency rather, of that particular oil that's high in geraniol is a bad thing. It's simply, and it wasn't making me nauseous, or I wasn't having any adverse reactions. It was just like, that's just too much for me. It's just too much. And that makes me come back to the thought that, well, I've had people talk about selecting oils based on the way you were attracted to them and only going with ones you're attracted to, and that could not be further from the truth. It would be nice to think that we could live in a world like that and just select oils that resonated with us and the ones that just kind of, but the fact is that based on the world that we have right now, selecting oils that are beneficial for, like I said, the Krebs cycle, which supports the breakdown of carbohydrates and sugars, supporting the folate cycle. I've talked about that. If all we did was support the folate cycle and the Krebs cycle, we would be so much further ahead, because we would be supporting the function of the epigenome at that level, which is it's important. Not to mention the fact that geraniol has also been discovered to support glutathione production, which is, it's an antioxidant. So there's a lot of benefits to doing all of this. And again, I just kind of shied away from the oils that were high in geraniol for one reason, basically because they just were offensive to my nose, and I've learned. So when I say supporting the digestive system, I need to be clear right now, it's not the gut. It's not necessarily the stomach, and it's not just the bowels. I have so many people go, well, I don't have any bowel issues. It's not about that. Digestion starts in the mouth and it ends at the cellular level. And as I mentioned, Krebs cycle and the folate cycle this is what's happening at the cellular level. This is extraordinarily important when it comes to digestion. And the more we actually work to soothe that stress response, and you're going to hear more about this in a minute, because I know this sounds like I'm talking about breast cancer, but I'm getting somewhere with this. The more we can soothe that stress response, the easier it is for the body to actually produce this, to convert acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is obviously produced from choline. Choline is abundant in our foods. And I have worked in naturopath's office where I've had people trying to give people choline, give them phosphatidylcholine. The body has all the choline it really needs based on our diet. If it's not utilizing that choline effectively, then that comes back to the way the body's breaking down the foods. And it's predominant in dairy, it's predominant in seafood, it's in the spinach, which I eat a ton of, peanuts. There's a lot of foods that are good sources of choline. And so eggs is obviously the best one. And so if you have a diet with anything like that in it, meats, you've got the choline. Okay, it's really about helping your body break it down. And acetylcholine, as I started to say, is a significant neurotransmitter hormone that activates the autonomic nervous system, and it creates all of these systemic changes that are occurring. But when that is activated, the bowels, the function of the bowels, like I said, the whole digestive system begins to slow down. Acetylcholine, when the body is thriving and the stress response is not activated, then the body is actually producing higher levels of hydrochloric acid, which now it can actually begin to break down more effectively your macronutrients in the gut. And acetylcholine and the production of hydrochloric acid is also necessary for balancing of gut flora. Now here's a really interesting thing that I've talked about in other videos, and if you haven't seen or heard anything from me before this, I talk a lot about betaine. You can get betaine, and it's called betaine plus HP. It's just basically a hydrochloric acid supplement that you can take. Betaine is a metabolite of choline, and betaine is, like I said, if you actually can get it as a hydrochloric acid supplement, and you take it, you're actually supporting the gut flora balance. It's far beneficial, and see, that's the reason why acetylcholine is necessary for the production of hydrochloric acid, because what it's doing is as it's metabolized and converted into betaine, now we can produce the hydrochloric acid in the gut. We do not need to be taking probiotics. If you're living with any kind of autoimmune disorder, you are challenging your body even further by taking probiotics. I know that's contrary to what we're hearing out there, yet probiotics are actually known to aggravate a number of autoimmune diseases, including psoriasis and eczema. So it stimulates the production of natural killer cells, and my concern is with other people who are having scarring and lesions going on with like lupus and MS, and just like the plaques, on the skin, it does happen inside the body. We don't need natural killer cells to be we don't need high levels of natural killer cells. So probiotics isn't necessary. Hydrochloric acid is necessary. Taking acetylcholine or taking choline is, and here again, I'm talking about, this is a different modality. This is a modality that promotes the body's ability to actually deactivate the stress response and support its ability to break down these macronutrients so that the cells can begin to use them more effectively. Once that begins to happen, so do I think so in my case, what did all of this happen for? It's to really shed light on where I had given up on myself, where I wasn't loving myself to the degree where I would own what felt right to me, own this call, this crazy feeling that gets me out of bed every single morning. I cowered in the corner. That's what this is about for me. It could be different for everybody else. And people could look at me and go, well, how do you? That's because that makes sense to me, because I feel more empowered than I ever have after getting my diagnosis. Again, it's been a real turnaround for me. So bergamot and bitter orange. Bitter orange also helps with the CYP1B1, yeah, I was right the first time. So it's a CYP450 enzyme called CYP1B1. That is the one that's responsible for the metabolism of estrogen. When we are stressed, we are not metabolizing estrogen to the degree that it's necessary for elimination. We begin to produce toxic levels of different forms of estrogen, which is the reason why we see a lot of glaucoma, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and so forth, and lung cancer. So the bitter orange also has high limonene content, but it's also supporting that CYP1B1. Now, I've ordered a couple of other oils for myself because in order to help reduce the amount of estrogen, work with the bitter orange. And that would be an East Indian sandalwood is one, and another one is myrrh. So that's where I'm starting with my protocol. I may have to change out the sandalwood if they decide to put me on some kind of medication, and trust me, I'm going to do the medication. Not because I don't trust the oils. Please hear that. It's not because I don't trust the oils. I will use oils in a way that supports methylation, supports digestion, supports stability. The difference between an oil and a medication is very simple. Well, there's two differences. One, the medication itself does not have that natural life force in it that a natural remedy does. Okay, that's a given. So therefore, although the body will react to it because it is it's a replica of an organic compound, signaling molecule, it kind of becomes almost like a dead end. So using oils to support that is where I will go. And if I do end up doing that, or no matter what the next level of treatment is, you'll be sure to know what oils I've changed to, if I've changed anything. But the other difference between an oil and a medication is the fact that an oil is not nearly as concentrated. Yeah, they're concentrated. I mean in the sense that they are essential oils, so they are concentrate from the plant, but not to the degree that they can be placed into a medication. That's the reason why taking a medication gets you results faster. Number one. Two, and also keep in mind, it's the mindset. Now, I know that I may be sounding like I'm contradicting myself. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you that I'm not scared. So maybe a part of that is, somebody said to me the other day, maybe this is to help me promote my, actually share my journey. And my journey truthfully is about the two worlds, about bridging the gap between the two worlds, because there's a necessity for the medications that we have. If they weren't meant to be here, we wouldn't be gifted the intelligence to create them, and we have the intelligence. So if they ask me to take medications, I will, because I'm scared. Do I doubt my body's ability? No. Do I believe in bridging the gap? Yes. I think it's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary. We have these systems for a reason. And for those people who want to go all natural, then I applaud you. You know, I applaud your courage, and I applaud that journey for you. If you're going to go completely conventional, I applaud that too. It's our individual choices, and there's something about me that really believes in everybody getting along. And so I'm not about coming against anybody. So that's the reason why. Do I believe in my body's ability to heal? Yes. But I also know that for me, truthfully, for me, loving myself and allowing people to give to me is another lesson in this, because I have walled myself off for so long. Allowing people to give to me is necessary, because that's a form of self-love. And that's another way that I see this. So again, I do believe in my body's ability to heal itself, but I also believe that I need to be loved. I need to feel fully loved, and that will come from many people, not just myself. And so you will know what I select, and what goes on from there. I think that's all I was going to say about the cancer and my oil choices, and why I'm doing this and what all of this is about for me. Now, on to, and I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, because I've already said a lot about what I'm going to say next, which is about Lyme. Lyme disease is a big deal, especially on the East Coast, and I've got a high number of clients with Lyme disease. So I've just posted about that on my website. Again, synergessence.com. It's under my ultimate guide. And I list there 4 essential oils that are good for Lyme. The reason this is significant to me is because I work a lot with Amish people, and they're exposed to Lyme, and they have a lot of questions about Lyme. And the bottom line is this: the body is being infected by a number of bacteria and viruses that have a tendency to go dormant, whether we're talking about herpes zoster, which leads to chickenpox and herpes, and shingles, to chlamydia bacteria, which causes a lot of respiratory issues, as well as Lyme. So these bacteria and viruses, I think the CDC said that there's like 95% of us, of adult population in the US, actually are walking around with at least one of these in our body. And so what ultimately happens is they don't necessarily cause the diseases. What they're doing is they're triggering an immune reaction, because they're consistently antagonizing the body, and they will become reactivated when we become exposed to another virus, if it's a virus that's gone dormant. So, and the same thing can be said for Lyme. And the challenge that we face is because the system is consistently stressed. We now are experiencing a lot of neurotoxicity due to maybe possibly excessive glutamate levels because of stress. And in the Amish's case, they're exposed to a lot of heavy metals due to the paper factories and so forth in the air. So that dopamine glutamate conversion that goes on in order to help the body house heavy metals creates high levels of glutamate outside the cells, which is neurotoxic. It also impacts the nitric oxide synthase, which now starts producing peroxynitrite, which is also neurotoxic. And then if we start throwing oils in there that are high in ketones, now you got even more neurotoxicity, which is another reason why I'm offering a class, an online course on the 7th of December, 2019, pardon me, and I'll keep doing it because I'm thinking this is important. The ketones are neurotoxic. And the thing is that right now we're promoting essential oils as I mentioned earlier, Bath and Body, and they're just generally regarded as safe. They're grass. But with ketones, high levels of ketones, they become neurotoxic. And doing a consult with one of my clients the other day, we were going over the types of ketones and why this was good or not good for Lyme. In this case, because as I said, with the stress, we have all this different activation that's going on that just continues to produce oxidative stress, and high levels of oxidative stress over time leads to other diseases. This is the reason why these bacteria and viruses are linked to other health issues as people get older, whether it be cancer, whether it be autoimmune disorder, and so on. So that said, the oils that I recommended, I'm going to tell you here, and I'll tell you why. First one is myrrh. Writing my book on essential oils and sleep, and uncovering a lot of information, I can straight up tell you that myrrh is a perfect oil for relieving that stress response, just hands down. I wouldn't recommend you, I mean, again, we're talking about Lyme, and you cannot be using these oils with certain medications. Myrrh cannot be used with opiate medication, and it really shouldn't be used with any psychotropic medication either. Those are the ones that clear in the CYP3A4 gene. So we have to be really careful about that. But myrrh, in the meantime, if you're not taking meds, is a good one. Love it. Amorous wood is another one. Has been confirmed to be able to inactivate Lyme. Mei Chang, another one, inactivate Lyme. These are reports that are coming straight out of Asia. Now, the quality of your oil and where you're getting your oils is significant. You have to understand the constituents. Again, that's the reason for the class. If you don't, because there's a difference in, and I mean, I'm giving you names of these, but we have to double check the botanical names. I've found companies right now that are listing botanical names. They're not the actual botanical name. It's a family name. It's not the botanical name of the oil. This can be very misleading. But in the meantime, just amorous wood, Mei Chang, 2 that have been confirmed out of Asia to inactivate Lyme. Myrrh is one that I believe they've also studied in those studies, and that is also very beneficial because it, as I mentioned, besides the stress response, it also supports the immune system. So, and that's studies that come out of Germany as well. So those 3. The 4th one is palmarosa. Palmarosa is not listed in any of the studies, but the reason for the palmarosa is because it's very high in geraniol, and it supports the conversion of acetylcholine. It supports that methylation, that folate cycle, so which is helping to reduce the stress response. It's supporting the ability of the body to break down foods more effectively, especially when you combine it with Mei Chang, which also has geraniol in it. So those would be the 4 oils, but I really can't emphasize enough, 4 oils for Lyme, but I really can't emphasize enough the importance of really getting to know these constituents. So I invite you to join me in this class. I said it's coming up on the 30, I'm looking at the time, the 7th of December from 10:30 to 2:30, and it's $111 to participate. And we will go over your questions. There's a lot of information on oils. I really want to provide you with a list of not just the constituents, but actually beginning to identify the differences within a family and within a species. This is significant. I mean, one of my clients the other day, I hadn't talked to her since the beginning of the year. She went and bought oils from another company, which is fine. And but this company doesn't have all the oils that I do, and I don't mean that to sound don't mean that to sound bad, but I buy my oils from around the world. I don't buy them from an individual company. And so I have access to, I'm using oils that are not found in every single company or on store shelves. And so when I had listed marjoram Spanish on my list of ingredients, she went and she bought a marjoram from the company she signed up with. And this is the one I recognize that not only did she get the wrong marjoram, they gave it, they didn't even give the botanical name. They provided the plant family botanical name. And so it's very misleading. So we talked about that for a little while. But this is really what prompted me to go, this is important, especially with people, with children, with autism, and the number of essential oils that people are trying to use. I'm not trying to tell you that you're doing it wrong. I'm just wanting to take it to the next level so that we can maximize our results and really begin to distinguish the difference between why one rosemary is not another rosemary, how the very same plant can be grown in 2 different locations and be entirely different. So this information is important. If we're, as consumers, it's good for us to know this, especially since this industry is growing to be in the trillions in just a few years. They're predicting this. It's just consistently growing. And so understanding not only what you're using, where your sources are, I will provide you with all of that. I'm excited about it. So yeah, as far as Lyme is concerned, let me just say it one more time. Myrrh, palmarosa, Mei Chang, and amorous wood. You will be, and then if you follow the digestive suggestions that I have either talked about here as well as on that blog, you're golden. All right. Not to say that your body's not going to need continued support. just because we live on this earth, it will. And because we have crazy things going on in life that potentially antagonize us. So learning how to keep it all grounded and just understanding it's all happening for our higher good. And how can we bring that into this moment and not feel doomed and not feel like it's nothing's worthy or nothing's going to work. It'll all work when we just find out what makes sense for us. All right, I hope that makes sense to you. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for being here. You guys have a terrific day.